This is Fred Richani of TSC News right here on MNN. Happy to welcome to the show. He's a former professional wrestler, one of the most respected trainers in the professional wrestling business. He is the head trainer and owner of the world-famous Monster Factory in Paulsboro, New Jersey. We're talking to Danny Cage. Danny, how's it going?
I'm loving life. I actually just stepped out from training 2 minutes ago, so we're at it right now.
The old saying where it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. For a lot of years, I heard about the Monster Factory and its origins and everything. But the last few years, especially being in New York and New Jersey, I've heard so much. The world-famous Monster Factory, all these guys getting signed. This guy, Danny Cage, he's dropping knowledge. He's hanging out with Gerald Briscoe, X-Pac, getting endorsed by some of the biggest names in the history of the business. But from what I understand, your success wasn't immediate. What's the story behind you getting involved with the Monster Factory and eventually becoming its owner?
Yeah, man, it goes back years. I had my first tryout in '94. Headbangers put me through my first tryout. It took me till late '97, early '98 to begin training there. And then when I started training there, like we said, it was a lot different. It wasn't in the same building it's in now. Started training there, started wrestling. I got done around 2005. My back was a little banged up. 2010 and 11, I came around and started helping out another friend of mine with some training, and Larry had come around, and there was talks of that becoming the Monster Factory, and one thing led to another, and then it was me and Larry, and then next thing you know, I basically just bought the name because we had no students, we had no ring or anything. The ring belonged to the other guys, and the students were theirs, and got in the building in Paulsboro, bought a ring. I mean, when I was first in here, I was me and a couple students, we had an empty building, and we were just doing promo drills and lockups. Then I bought a ring, and I started redoing everything and working on the social media, because at the time, Monster Factory had no social media, had no website, had no Facebook account, no network. So I built all that up in the last 6 years, and been plugging along, and it's been a hell of a journey, and you know, nobody does it alone, and I haven't. There's been a lot of people help me along the way, but I'm living a dream, and it's surreal to think, you know, the contacts I made, but it's also pretty funny because there's still people that crap on me saying I have no business doing this, and you know, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm a hack, and this and this. But the proof's in the pudding when you see the people that come from our school and what they're doing, and the people that listen to me and how they get their foot in the door at different places, whether it be Ring of Honor, Evolve, WWE, and beyond, you know?
For sure. And you know what? Let's talk about why some people on the outside may crap on you, because they'll look at you and they'll say, "Who the hell's Danny Cage? He's not Lance Storm."
Of course. And I would say the same thing.
But
I would say the same thing.
But as you mentioned, the proof's in the pudding. So you're a guy that didn't have a whole lot of matches. You mentioned you had a back injury, some other stuff I'm sure probably went on in life and whatnot. When did you get to the point where you said, you know what, I still can make a positive contribution in the business, and oh yeah, I think I'm pretty damn good at training people?
It was almost like by accident. I had always, like, when I was training at the Monster Factory, I was always like, man, me and my friends would talk about it. Me and the other guys training would be like, man, if only the school was like this, and if only we did that. And the years of me wrestling amateur wrestling, I would go to all these camps, and there would be, you know, 50, 60 people from around the world exchanging ideas and techniques, and all these different coaches being flown in, and, you know, you were bunking up for the, you know, couple days and all that stuff. And I was like, man, I would love opportunities like that. And how come we don't have all these different connections coming in? And so, like, I always wanted to do it, but, you know, I never thought anything of it. It kind of just fell in my lap where I came by to help somebody, and they're like, hey, do you want to start helping out with training the guys? I was like, absolutely. And, you know, then you're like, oh man, I'm kind of glad I got hurt, because I think I'm way better at this. And also what benefited me being a good coach and a trainer was, I also worked for a major corporation for 17 years. I worked for Verizon, and I know how corporations work, and I know how the corporate structure works, and I know what they look for. And I realized that pro wrestling is a very small part of pro wrestling. I'm sure there's many better trainers in the ring than me, but that is a very small part of the business. There's so many other things that go into it. There's promos, there's etiquette, there's how you carry yourself, there's the connections you make, there's how long you do things for, you know, how you dress, how you answer that phone call. I mean, everything is always a job interview in professional wrestling. And that goes on for a very long time. Too many people think it's like, oh, all I got to do is be able to put on a match and they'll love me. No, there's plenty of people that put on a match. It's, oh, all I need to do is a cool move. Well, nobody can do that Kalisto can do. So, you know, that isn't going to get their attention. You have to be the complete total package. And if you think you have something that's irreplaceable, trust me, they'll grab it, put it on somebody else that can do it better than you and has a better attitude than you. That's what's different than pro wrestling, and that's why I love pro wrestling so much.
And in your defense, this is something that Dutch Mantel once wrote in one of his books, who was a mentor of mine in the business. He said that he looks at baseball managers and wrestling trainers a lot in the same, in the sense that some of the most successful baseball managers weren't necessarily guys that played a whole lot, but they had a chance to sit back, watch the greats do their thing, and for whatever reason, they just kind of picked up on it and were able to pass that along and become great teachers. And I kind of feel like that's the same way with you and a lot of other guys that train. One thing I like about your school is it's not just you training people. It's not just the occasional guy like Punishment Martinez or QT Marshall, who now is Zone School, but you bring in guys from all over the country. I mean, you brought in Gerald Briscoe, Sean X-Pac Waltman, Kevin Kelly. You're bringing in Bill DeMott. How'd you get linked up with all these guys and form this super camp?
Just by, it all started with me just reaching out to Jerry Briscoe on Twitter. And once I reached out to him, one of our guys was training with us, was friends with Bob Evans, and Bob Evans turned me on to Kevin Kelly, and then I met with Kevin Kelly at a Ring of Honor show. He got in here. Then they're like, you got to meet Les Thatcher. And then it went to Rip Rogers. Then since one of our students was down at NXT, as soon as Bill got let go, he gave me Bill DeMott's contact information and Matt Wichlinski's contact information, who did strength and conditioning there. And we just started like interchanging them. And now I'm going to bring in Tom Pritchard, who I've known for a long time. And we've done camps together. We coached side by side down at Rudy Boy's camp. And then I was down at camp in North Carolina with him years ago. So we're going to bring him in. And we also I'm bringing in Ricky Reyes, who does stuff with Lucha Underground. And I'm down the road. I'm definitely on the docket. I got to talk, and I've talked to him in the past, but I really want to get going with Al Snow. I want him in here. But yeah, that's how it works. It's just networking and getting around like-minded people, and you know, just wanting to get people to get better. And like this weekend, like it led to people getting bookings from New Jersey that are in people that live in New Jersey, in Texas, and all these other different places in Canada, just by being around them and networking and exchanging ideas. And people invest in themselves, and that's what wrestling should be about.
For sure. And it's kind of funny that you reached out to Gerald Briscoe, one of the all-time great pro wrestlers and great scouts as well, through Twitter. You wouldn't think the guy's that social media savvy, but here you are reaching out to him, connecting with him, and you've been friends for years ever since.
Yeah, and what it became was, like, I knew that he was into amateur wrestling, and so was I. So occasionally I'd see what he's talking about on Twitter, and he didn't know who I was. And then I would hit him up, and I would say different things and comment different things about it. And next thing you know, he followed me. So I messaged him, and I said, what would it take to get you in the Monster Factory? And he's like, here's my cell. Call me. And I called him up. We just bullshit for a while, and then it was, you know, no big deal. He came in, and, you know, next thing you know, he's saying everything that I always say to the kids. And now they're starting to believe me, like, oh, my God, this is back in 2012. Oh, okay, Danny does know what he talked about. Here's a WWE Hall of Famer and talent scout for the WWE saying exactly what Dan's been telling us for the last year. And I had never even talked to Jerry really before. And he wound up taking a liking to one of our students, who's now Steve Cutler at NXT. And he's been there for like 4 years now.
Was that the validation you needed? I mean, I know you have to trust your conviction as a trainer, especially when you left the corporate world to go all in with the Monster Factory. But when you heard the things that Gerald Briscoe was saying, and they sounded a hell of a lot like the things you're saying, was that when you really knew, all right, I'm on the right path here?
Yeah, that was really cool. Another cool thing was Stone Cold calling me up and get me on a show and basically letting me plug my wrestling school for the entire hour. And it was all because he was up watching our training videos on YouTube all night. And I was friends with him, but only casually friends. We would message and talk every once in a while on the phone. But out of nowhere, he just called me up and asked if I wanted to do the show, and we did it 5 minutes later. So like that phone call you hear with me being on a show, I had no warning that I was going to be on a show. It was that minute he called me and we were doing it. So that was really cool. And, yeah, I mean, the validation is what it's about, because like, I don't need anybody really to like tell me what to do. I just need to know, like, okay, I'm doing the right thing because these people are saying it. And I would assume that these people would call me out if it wasn't the right thing. You know what I mean? Or they just wouldn't give me the time of day.
Absolutely. And some other Monster Factory alumni, and actually people that are actually still currently with Monster Factory, Punishment Martinez. That's a big man who's doing his thing in Ring of Honor. We had him on the show a few months back. Real nice guy. I mean, here's a dude. You talk about 10 years to become an overnight success. For those that don't know his story, I suggest you guys check out our interview with him in the archives. This is a dude that's, 34, 35 now. All of a sudden, at the prime of his career in Ring of Honor. Just last year, he competed against Haruki Goto for the Never Championship in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I mean, doesn't that guy define what the Monster Factory is all about?
He put in the work, man. He put in the work, and he continues to put in the work. He just wrestled Dalton Castle for the Ring of Honor for the World Championship in Nashville. So he's putting in that work. He's doing everything the right way, and he was just in tonight. He we were just talking, and he helped go over get one of our kids ready for his WWE tryout while I was putting the class through things. And he's one of my best friends in and out of the business.
A few other Monster Factory folks that we've had on the show before: Ian Riccaboni, current ROH announcer, who's doing an excellent job. Leon St. Giovanni, who I actually went to college with and know him by
he told me that.
And know him by his shoot name, which we won't reveal here. We'll keep it kayfabe. But I've seen the progress that he's made under you guys, and it's been awesome.
Giovanni's made some great progress.
Yeah, real good dude, and of course Gabby Ortiz, who just recently shouted out by the Philly mayor, who she works for. Works for the Philly mayor by day, trains at the Monster Factory by night. Just recently did a tour of Stardom. She's barely been in the business for a couple of years, and she's already gotten some pretty decent gigs. Can you talk a little bit about her?
Yeah, she came here and she had to take a break for a little bit. She had some stuff going on. She came back and she was doing all the right things. And there was times where, I'd have to get on her ass about, working out more and doing more things and really being focused on wrestling. But you know how it is, like, some people at certain ages, they don't understand things. And then an opportunity came up where, and this is why I laugh when people say, well, you don't let your kids do anything. Like, we had a show and she was supposed to be the announcer. We had no announcer, but an opportunity came up to go get a look by Stardom over at Ring of Honor Dojo. So I said, go do it. And right away, Gio hit me up and said, oh my God, I think they're really interested in her. And I said, tell her to stay then. She can stay the whole night. And then that's when Hunter, Delirious hits me up, and Delirious was like, hey, I'm really sorry. Is it okay? And I was like, I already know, keep her. She's yours tonight. And they knew from the jump that she was going to get in there. And I told her, listen, do you deserve this? I don't know. But you got the opportunity to go and kill it. You were in the right place, right time. So you have to bend it. You have to make sure it's not in vain and people don't go, oh, see, I told you she didn't deserve it. But I'm happy with the progress. There's still more that she could be doing. But I'm never satisfied. That's what a good coach does. There's nobody I would be like, oh yeah, he's fine. He's doing it great. There's a guy, the guy we just got a tryout to, I put him in for a tryout and co-signed for him. But I still think he could do more. And that's just the way it is. I always think I can do more. I'm always thinking what I can do better and what I can do different and, things like that.
We mentioned LSG. Steve Cutler is doing his thing in NXT. Gabby Ortiz. Is there anybody else that's on your radar? I know you're never satisfied with your trainees. You want them to do better, but is there anybody that we should be on the lookout for that people are watching right now that they can catch?
Well, Nick Comoroto, he's a big stud, 6'5", 260. He had his WWE tryout. And he's somebody that should be signed right now. He's got everything. Another one I'll say is Getty Cahoon, the kid I had my last match with in December. He's only 22 years old, and I have never seen somebody with a better understanding and delivering of a promo and character than him. And he has a great presence in the ring. The only thing he has to work on is a little bit more seasoning and a little bit more seriousness in the gym to get that pro wrestler look. But he's a 6'5" kid, big kid, only 22 years old. So I think in like the next 2 years, he's somebody you could see at NXT. Like, oh my God, that's the guy. Like I said to myself, if he does everything I think he's going to do and can do, I think he could possibly be like one of the best success stories of the Monster Factory.
Wow.
That's how highly I think of him.
That's definitely saying a lot. We'll definitely keep our eyes open for those dudes. As a trainer, what is the most consistently annoying thing you see from trainees? Is there one thing that I know there's a lot of things that annoy you as I follow you on Facebook, but is there one thing that even now after training for all these years, you still can't believe that some people do or fall into a certain trap?
Number one is there's probably, I'd say 3 or 4 things. Number one is it's not their fault, is because like when they went into wrestling, they weren't expecting it to be as hard as it is. So that's not on them. That's just bad expectation. Number 2 is not being coachable. If you're coachable, that means you can listen. That means you're going to follow instructions. That means you're going to respect your coach. So many things fall under that umbrella. Number 3 is too many people let other people get in their own head. Like, for example, if they did a show and somebody said, oh my God, you're so great. Why aren't you here, here, and here? Instead of just training at the Monster Factory, you should be doing so much more. You should be on the road, forget training. But that's one of the biggest downfalls, because if all you did was wrestle, you're not going to get better. You know, the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles got so good. You know why? Because every week they trained. They didn't go, oh, we got 16 bookings this year. We can take it all. We can take training off. You put in the work. There's the reason you get crisp in the ring is training. And probably the last thing is it could go 2 ways. 1, impatient. And 2, they think that there's always tomorrow to do things. If you understand what I mean.
For sure.
They'll put things off. Like, you have to start eating right and doing this. Yeah, I will next week. Or, yeah, there'll be plenty of time to do that. Well, whatever. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing. And not appreciating where their home is. That's the most frustrating thing, is when people forget where they came from. You know, people that trained here, people that I helped out, people that I put up, people that I gave breaks to, people that I looked out for, made phone calls for, and then they just never look back and publicly say thank you, or even privately say thank you, or even return a phone call or do anything for you. That's frustrating.
But I'd imagine you have a lot more positive experiences and negative experiences training these kids.
Yeah. And even put it this way, even if I only have 2 positive experiences, they far outshadow all the negative. If I was dwelling on the negative, I would never get out of bed, and I would never open the doors to the Monster Factory, because the negative stuff I have to deal with is overwhelming.
Right. Has there ever been a situation, maybe a student, that kind of taught you something? Because you're teaching these kids lessons every day. I learn every single day from these kids. Every single day. Whenever something goes wrong, like I said, I never think it's their fault. I first address, all right, why would they feel that way? What would make them feel that way, and how can I fix it? So I learn something every single day, every day. And plus, I let the kids give me feedback. There's people that are terrified me that train here, and then I'm like, when have I ever yelled at you? And they're like, well, when have I ever, done this? Aren't I the one that gave you breaks on tuition? Aren't I the one that, made sure you were okay? Aren't I the one that texted you and asked you how everything was going? Aren't I the one and then they're like, oh, yeah. Okay. So, like, I'm not
an animal. I'm just very strict. I'm a coach. I'm a coach first. I'm your friend last, if anything. Like, I have to be the coach because what'd you do? You hired me to be your coach. You didn't hire me to be your friend. You hired me to try to get you a job in professional wrestling, which I'm trying to do. I'm not here to hold your hand, high five you, and hug you and tell you everything's okay. I'm here to get you to that next level.
And when you get to that next level, a lot of times people tend to fall into their own niche, right? Not one wrestler is the same. Maybe a few years ago when you're watching TV, it looks like a lot of these guys just kind of came out of a factory, no pun intended. But nowadays,
right.
there's so many different wrestlers from all shapes and sizes. Not everybody has the same cardio. Not everybody has the same strengths, the same weaknesses. Of course, in a wrestling school, you are teaching the fundamentals and all the life experiences that you had that they can apply to WWE, TNA, wherever. But how do you adjust when you get somebody that's a little bit different from the norm? Maybe not as good as cardio as some of the other students, doesn't have the right physique, maybe doesn't have the aptitude to take certain bumps that other guys can take. How are you able to adjust with certain students that are a little bit different from the others?
It works itself out because we don't have a beginner course or an advanced course. Everybody trains together. So all that stuff works itself out. And we tell them, like, listen, there's gonna be times when you're here and you're beat up and you're about to puke and you can't do this and you can't do that, but just work through it and you'll be fine. We don't get down on them. We don't get mad at them. The hardest part, I say, is showing up. You show up every week and you give me effort, I'm not going to give you a hard time. So it all works itself out, man.
Who drew you into wrestling?
I was watching Sergeant Slaughter versus Iron Sheik in, I believe, '83, in a boot camp match, and that was my first experience of wrestling. And then after that, I started getting pro wrestling magazines, then ordering all the back issues of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, The Wrestler. I was getting videotapes. I was anything to do with pro wrestling I would get, and I would just read, research, and my entire life was pro wrestling from probably age 12 till now.
What was your wife's immediate reaction when you said, honey, I'm going to leave this very cushy corporate Verizon job to do this wrestling thing full time?
She said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And she said, you think you can do it? I said, yeah. And she goes, okay, do it. That's it. That was exactly the talk.
That's a ride. That's a ride or die, as the kids say.
Yep. That was as easy as it was. It's exactly what it was. She understands. She understands completely. And there's times where she gets frustrated, but because like when you own your own business, sometimes the bills are good, sometimes they're not. Sometimes, you get a bunch of money and sometimes you're not. So you got to take the good with the bad. I haven't had a vacation. I don't know how long. I haven't taken a vacation in probably a decade. I haven't taken a day off in, I don't know, like a decade. I just don't take days off. It's just always work. And if I'm not in, like the other day, I didn't get into training because I was doing a bunch of Skype calls and had a bunch of business meetings to fly to LA. But that was like the only reason I missed training. And even then I called up to make sure they all knew that I was, not going to be in, and Luis would be handling trainer. So, yeah, I'm constantly working, and there's times where like I do get some downtime, but even when I have downtime, I'm constantly doing something, whether it be on social media or creating a flyer or editing a video or something. Like, yeah, I'm always trying to be doing something productive. To get to the next level, trying to make another dollar, trying to get another connection, whether it be an email or just even emailing customers that come to our shows and saying, thank you for coming to our show. Here's tickets to this or show, or we're going to, what's your t-shirt size? I'm sending you a t-shirt. Just little things that aren't costing me money, but it's probably going to get me a lot more customers.
Before we go, what's the best piece of advice you could give everybody watching this right now?
Forget everything you think you know about pro wrestling if you start to go train, because it's nothing like you think it is. The hardest part will be showing up. And when I say the hardest part will be showing up, I mean every day it's going to get harder and harder to get up and show up. Even when you love it, it's torture. But keep pushing, because sooner or later you get over that hump, and then it's the greatest payoff in the world.
Well said. And the floor is yours to plug the Monster Factory, the Monster Factory Network, and where fans can find you guys online.
Yeah, you can head over to YouTube, just punch in Monster Factory Pro TV. We have tons of YouTube content there. And if Stone Cold Steve Austin's up spending 12 hours a night watching our stuff, you should too. We also have our own network with exclusive stuff up there, training videos, everything at the mfnetwork.com, the mfnetwork.com. You can hit us up at monsterfactory.org for all our news and follow us on Facebook with the MFPW, the MF Network, Factory Fridays, and of course Monster Factory LLC. And you can follow us on Twitter at the number 4 Monster Factory and me, the Danny Cage, and the MFPW. And on Instagram for Monster Factory and Real Danny Cage. And I handle all those websites, all those social media, everything I do myself. So when people say I don't have enough time to do things, I say, screw you. I do more than you. I'm 44 years old with a wife, 2 kids, a mortgage, 2 vehicles, a business to run, and all that stuff to do. Find the time.
Couldn't have said any
How'd
better.
that go?
Danny,
How'd that go?
that was awesome, man. Danny, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated, man. Best of luck with everything going forward with Monster Factory.
All right, brother. Talk to you, man. See ya.
Thanks so much for watching TSC News. Stay tuned next week when we take a special look at the Action Martial Arts Hall of Fame weekend in Atlantic City, featuring interviews with former WWE World Champion, the world's strongest man, Mark Henry, WWE Hall of Famer, Mr. Bob Backlund, Straight Outta Compton star R. Marcos Taylor, UFC Hall of Famer, Dan the Beast Severin, and kickboxing legend, Don the Dragon Wilson. Until then, same time, same place, TSC News right here on MNN2.